voice acting versus acting. I told you before the show.
I'm sure you mean like face.
Yeah,
face
I'm
acting.
talking about full-on movie star acting, right? So series and movies and stuff. Do you find that it is harder to do a voice acting piece than it is to do a movie, say, for example?
In some ways, yes. I'd say because I started in the business doing on-camera acting, so that's something that's familiar to me.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say there's certain aspects of each that are more difficult than the other. I'd say with on camera, you have your movement to think about, and if your movement is not believable, then nobody's going to believe you as the character.
Yeah.
But you also have a lot of other things to inform that performance. You have props, you have a set, you have costume, you have another person in costume. You have so many other things that you can use to inform your performance, to show your character's intentions. Now, that being said, that's hard because you have a lot more things to manage.
Yeah.
You have a lot more, you have to worry about being on mark. You have to worry about not moving too much when, you're in the close-up, because, you have to tailor your movement based on the framing.
Yeah.
If you have like a wide shot, you can be much more expressive. You can do all of this stuff. But if it's a shot like this and, you're right in the camera and it's for a movie and your eyes are this big on the screen, something as little as this is a huge movement. If you're like moving around like this on the screen, it's going to make people sick. So there's all of that kind of stuff to think about. Whereas there's not that with voice acting, but that's what makes it harder. You don't have any of those things to inform your performance. Everything is in your imagination. You have to basically, and a lot of times you're not even reading opposite somebody else. So you have to basically make their performance up in your brain as well, so that you have something specific to respond to. Because if you're just saying your lines,
Mm-hmm.
it's gonna sound very generic. It's not gonna sound in the moment. You have to be responding to something that they did that makes you feel a certain way, enough to say those words. So you have to figure out what that is. And that's one of the reasons why there's just kind of a magic when you do that with somebody else, because you might have it all gamed out that the scene's going to go a certain way, and then they might do something completely different that changes it and turns it on its head. And if you're there present in the moment, you're going to react to that differently than what you had originally planned to do.
Yes.
And those are the great moments. And
I can imagine that's what makes this period of time so difficult. It's because you're now in a booth, you get given the lines of yours, and for example, let's take No More Lies. You had Patty's lines in front of you, and you had your lines, and you just sort of, went back and forth.
There are also stage directions to kind of tell me what was happening in the scene.
Yes.
So I mean, you have some info there to basically make your mental pictures.
Okay.
And then sometimes they will have like a very rough animatic, where you'll see just like a storyboard of what's going to happen for certain little shots.
Oh, okay.
And that helps a lot. Because then you can at least kind of have a place to jump off from.
Yeah.
But you don't always get that. And that's what makes it difficult, is that you have to basically have all of those things in your brain, and then without having an object, or without having like a physical tick, or some sort of thing that can, like a tell or whatever, that can help inform your performance. You don't have any of that. It has to be done through your voice.
Would you consider yourself, I don't know if that is something that voice actors even do, but would you consider yourself a character actor? Or just...
I mean, well, I'd say that the majority of, and this is for anybody that wants to get into voiceover,
Mm-hmm.
it's not necessary for you to be able to do all kinds of impressions and all kinds of dialects and all kinds of different, silly voices. It's more important that you can act in a situation and be believable. Yeah. Because I'd say about 80% of the stuff that I do is some variation of my own voice. Whether it's pitched down to sound older or bigger, or pitched up to sound younger, a lot of it is just my natural speaking voice. So there are a lot of people who want to get into voiceover will kind of discount their arguably greatest asset, which is just their normal speaking voice. and it really is more about being able to tell the story and being able to act as a character in that situation. That being said, if I'm going to do something like like a goblin or whatever, that's going to be a different thing. And yeah, I mean, I can do those as well. So I can go from being just I don't know what you would call it, a leading man type voiceover actor to a character as well. I mean, it's and when you're doing voiceover, I mean, there's not, you can't really play every leading man, because then you can get tired of your voice,
Yeah.
So you have to kind of do other things. You have to do characters and things that don't sound anything like you.
All right, so how do I ask this? You're in the booth, you're busy doing the voice for Anduin or for any of your other characters. Do you ever find yourself sort of just getting into it? Like, really, you get angry and your hands are sort of pumping and you're getting into it. You're really getting into it.
If I'm acting a part, I physicalize it.
Okay.
Because and the hard part is physicalizing it without having that noise come out on the mic.
Mm-hmm.
But you need to physicalize it, because if you don't physicalize it, it's just going to sound like you're reading. Like when you're physicalizing and like when you just did this and you got into it, this changes the way you say this. This adds air to it. Like the way you move is gonna introduce other pauses and just speech idiosyncrasies that wouldn't happen if you were just reading it.
Yeah.
So it's important. I mean, even if it's just me in the booth, I still play it as though I'm standing on a set, and I take a stance as though I'm wearing armor. I kind of feel the heaviness of that. Like you kind of have to imagine all of that.
Yeah.
Going to inform your performance, and you absolutely do have to get into it. And sometimes you get into it to the point where the anger is too much for the scene, and it doesn't necessarily work, and you have to pull that back and now kind of have that same feeling but make it more internal. Like you don't necessarily want to give away all your cards, but yeah,
especially with Anduin. I would imagine with Anduin that's a very important thing, that almost going OTT and then bringing it back, because he is very repressed, if that's even the correct word for it.
Absolutely is. And a lot of that is him thinking that he has to hold this certain image, because that's how he was raised.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and all of those are nuances that you think about when you're playing the scene. Like I don't necessarily go through and kind of write a music pitch of how I'm going to do every line and all that. I just kind of, it's more about mapping out the intentions and mapping out how this makes you feel, and then going in with those feelings and those I guess going in with those details, and then kind of letting it play out how it's going to play out.
That is interesting. I mean, as I said, this is something I studied and I got out of it. I literally did one advert in my entire life as an actor, and then I thought, no, this is definitely not my life.